Readers, reviewers, countrymen, lend us your ears.
And a huge thank you to all of our Patreons.
Thank you to the Pit Fighters, the First Swords, and all of the Bright Stars, Truth and Courage.
Hello and welcome back to for the very first time to the channel. I am Will and it is another day where I'm on my own, lonely, without Ed on the channel. So if you've been up to date recently with the channel, I've been away at uni and so I've not had time to really record videos, and Ed has been 8 hours away from me as we're on opposite sides of the country, and he has been doing videos with Sadie, and it's been awesome listening to what they're reading and kind of them keeping us up to date with what they intend to read as well. But today I'm going to be talking about what I intend to read during the month of March. And so at some point we will probably do a video, us three together, mixing the channel up a little bit. But for now, as I said, I'll be talking about what I intend to read during the month of March. And so doing a lot of March, I will be back from uni, and that means I will probably have, for the first time in quite a while, a chance to read for pleasure, which it is kind of counterintuitive. I'm doing English and history at degree level, and I'm doing that because I love reading, but then with the course and the reading list, you don't really get to pick up books that you want. And so books that I've been choosing for pleasure, I've had to listen to via Audible, because the books I'm reading physically are kind of highlighting thousands of notes for uni. But during March, I'm going to have a chance to pick things up physically and read books that I've been waiting to read for so long. And so the first book that springs to mind when I think of that is Return to Adan by Philip Chase, Dr. Fantasy himself. Third book in an epic fantasy series that kicks off with The Way of Adan, which was a brilliant, entertaining story that kind of mixes kind of classical fantasy with modern fantasy as well. And I really loved that blend. And you can find a review of The Way of Adan on the channel. And then book 2, The Prophet of Adan, blew not just my mind off, blew my socks off. It was that crazy. It really took the foundations that were laid in The Way of Adan and then just ignited the flames for a brilliant, riveting, fast-paced read that still had the aspects I loved about book 1 in the complex plot and the kind of twists and turns and the really brilliant characters who we're rooting for, and then the characters who we hate but still love to follow. We had all that in book 2 and it was just even better. And so I've got incredibly high hopes, and I have no doubt that Return to Adan is going to be a fantastic end to a series which Philip Chase spoiled us with last year in 2023, releasing all 3 books just a few months apart. And so if you haven't picked up The Way of Adan, what are you doing? I'll be talking about the Return to Adan once I've read it in March, and I'm sure I'll be talking and yapping on about it for months and months and years to come, and there'll be quite a few videos. We may do a series review on the channel as well. But yeah, that is the first book I intend to read for pleasure during the month of March. And so next up I have, what do I have? I have Heart of Darkness. So I read this during February, and I read it about 2-3 years ago, but I've chosen it to be one of my exam texts, or to answer an assessment on it. So I'll be reading through it again, and it's not a very long read, so it won't take me too long, but I'll be going through a fine-tooth comb and a magnifying glass and a pen. But don't worry, I will not highlight inside the book. Only criminals do that. I will be having a notebook next to me to highlight instead. And so yeah, don't worry, I do not kind of destroy my books, and Heart of Darkness will be one that I'm reading in March. And yeah, it felt weird reading it again after only having read it in February, but here we go. And yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of going through again, even though I read it a few years ago, and then obviously I went in knowing what was going to happen last month. Because I hadn't read it for a few years, a lot of those details still took me by surprise. And so it'd be interesting to see kind of what I notice on a third read through. I mean, I'm really going to become a master of Heart of Darkness. But yeah, so that is my third read of Heart of Darkness. Will be happening in March 2024. And then what do I have next? I have The Temple of Fortuna by Elodie Harper, the third book in the Wolf Den trilogy. Last month, I read The House with the Golden Door, which I have at hand. This was one of the best books I've ever read, one of the best sequels I've read, and my kind of probably joint first favourite read of 2024 thus far. And The Temple of Fortuna finishes this series off. And Sadie and Ed have both said that The Temple of Fortuna ends the series brilliantly, and so I trust them. They said that The House of the Golden Door is exceptional, and they're correct about that. So I'm going to put my trust in them and believe that this is going to end brilliantly. And I also trust Elodie Harper as a writer. She's absolutely brilliant in that she's got an amazing prose, but it's very stripped back. And that really serves the story so well. You can tell that she really has those flourishes of detail, which are absolutely beautiful. But she knows when to use those. She doesn't kind of bring it to the forefront and make this a dense read. It's very easy to read, and she really knows how to bring character to the forefront. And that is the strength of this story. The characters intertwining with this plot, you feel the constant tension, and I felt so stressed reading book 2, and I'm sure that is going to be the same with The Temple of Fortuna. As readers, why do we put ourselves through this emotional kind of trauma? It's always worth it at the end, but during it, I was stopped listening to The House of the Golden Door at some point, and I was going into a lecture, and I was thinking, I don't want to be at this lecture. I need to find out what's happening, and I was just so stressed listening to what these characters were going through. And so it's a fantastic book, and it's a rare experience when it affects you that much, and so you really have to make the most of it. And I hope that happens again with The Temple of Fortuna, which is the third final book in the Wolf Den trilogy. And next up I have The Song of Roland, an old French text, which I have no idea what it's about. I think it's about a kind of military leader during the reign of Charlemagne, but I may be completely wrong. And so this is actually the last text that I'll be covering in one of my modules during at uni, and this will be the text that covers kind of epic and legend of literature, which has been my favourite module on the English side thus far. And so this will be the last text, and I'm looking forward to reading this. And it's one of the few texts that Papa Gwyn or Ed has not read that have been on that list throughout the years. So really going this with kind of having no idea what's going to happen. But looking forward to reading The Song of Roland. And then next up, my current read, what I'm currently listening to, is Northern Wrath. And so this is a beautiful special edition from the Broken Binding. Northern Wrath. So it is very entertaining so far. We've got multi-POV, and most importantly, it's Norse. It is so Norse, you can hardly get any more Norse than this. And so if you need that kind of that Viking spice to your reading list, then Northern Wrath is the book to go to. I'm really enjoying it so far. Only about a quarter of the way in, but the characters really leap off the page, and I'm really liking the style. And the audible narrator, who I've forgotten her name, but she's really great as well, with kind of bringing across this tone and atmosphere. And Northern Wrath, I'm really looking forward to carrying on and probably reading the second and third book in kind of the subsequent months. But that is Northern Wrath. And what do I have next? After that, I have In Cold Blood, which is non-fiction, and it is about a murder, but it's apparently done very differently, and that's why it's been put on my uni reading list. And so another one. So I'm mentioning uni left, right, and centre, but so the next few texts I'll be talking about are all for uni. And so In Cold Blood, non-fiction, is one of them. And then after that, I'll be reading Watchmen, which is a graphic novel, which Papa Gwyn said is absolutely brilliant. And it's on the list because apparently it's very groundbreaking. And so we'll be covering that in the lecture on Watchmen. And I'm looking forward to reading that at some point soon. It's one that when I looked it up, it's got a very rich history and so a really hardcore fan base. But I hadn't actually heard it mentioned before. So I'm wondering if people watching this, have you read Watchmen? Is it just me kind of being blind to it and forgetting that people have mentioned it, or is it kind of not really in this corner of booktube that I engage with? That'd be interesting. But I'll be reading Watchmen very, very soon. And then a book I cannot wait to read is Empire of the Damned, which is by J. Christoph, the sequel to where is it? There we go. Empire of the Vampire, which I read in 2022, I believe, and it was one of my top 3 reads of 2022. Absolutely exceptional book, and I cannot wait to read this long-awaited sequel, and I have very, very high hopes. And it is one of those that the more pages, the better. It's not daunting at all, because I know that it's going to be riveting and engaging. And so when I finished Empire of the Vampire, even though it is about 600-700 pages, J. Christoph's style was very easy to binge, and so I got through it very quickly. And I'm imagining that would be the same for Empire of the Damned. And what a name as well. So good. And I cannot wait to read that. And I think, is this the last book that I'm reading? And it is Dreams of Fire by Shauna Lawless, which is a novella set about, I think, 100 years before the Children of Gods and Fighting Men, which we also have a review of on this channel. And that's a brilliant book. And I still need to read the sequel. How have I not read The Words of Kings and Prophets? That is traitorous, and that is just criminal behaviour from me. I will correct that at some point, but I'm going to start by diving into Dreams of Fire, which is released in March as well. And so really looking forward to reading that. And that is everything that I'll be reading during the month of March. Please let me know if you'll be reading any of these, and what books are you reading for the... Sorry, I went blank there. What books are you reading during March as well? And so, yeah, it'd be quite busy for me. I think I'm going to try and fit in as much reading during my break as possible. But yeah, I think I can do it. A good mix of kind of a lot of different genres there. And I think that's really key to... I talked to my other channel before about how to read more. And one of the tips I have is really mix your reading up. I love fantasy. It's probably my favourite genre. But I think if I read just fantasy, sometimes the tropes kind of reappear and sometimes there's similarities to the stories. But when you really mix it up, it really, I think, just keeps everything fresh. And so I've got some historical fiction here. I've got some fantasy. I've got kind of very different types of historical fiction in there. And I've got some like old French texts in there as well. And then some historical fantasy alongside that. And then some literary fiction and fiction as well. And so, yeah, it'd be hard to really kind of mix it up more. If I added a dash of poetry in there as well, I think it'd be as varied as it can be. But yeah, that is what I intend to read during the month of March. The reality may be very different. Maybe I'm being far too ambiguous, but yeah, I cannot wait to read all of these. And yeah, please let me know if I think this video will be coming out a few days into March. So if you've had already a great start to March, please do let me know. But anyway, everyone, thank you so much for watching. Truth and courage from the Brothers Gwyn.